Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at a chess game that I played yesterday, which was one of the best games that I've played in a long time. This was a tournament game where my opponent was a little bit underrated. He was 200 points lower rated than me, but he was like still enough that I had to actually work hard to beat him. And yeah, the time control was 90 minutes for each side with a 30-second increment, and we're just going to hop into it. My opponent starts off the game with e4, and what I've been playing in tournaments recently is the move c6, which is the Caro Kann. This is the opening that I know best. Of course, I eventually want to switch to the Sicilian, but the Caro Kann is still pretty good. d4, d5, and my opponent goes for the knight c3 variation. And after this, of course, we all know the theory. It's d takes e4, knight takes e4. And here we can play either bishop f5 or knight to f6. I enjoy knight to f6 more, just because I know it better, but bishop to f5 is probably the better line. Instead, knight to f6, knight takes f6, e takes f6, c3, bishop d6, bishop d3, castles, and queen c2. And now this is my first moment I have to actually think about the moves. Really, I have a couple of choices. He's attacking my pawn, and there's a couple of decisions that I have to think about here. The first one is, do I put the pawn on h5 or do I put the pawn on h6? And really, what I knew from past experience is that this is a matter of this is a matter of preference. h6 and h5 are both genuinely equal at higher depths of the engine, so I didn't really want to take too long to think about it. And also, I knew that in the future, I would want to put my rook on e8 anyway, because this is just where the rook wants to be on this nice, long, open file. So I was thinking, you know what, I can take a break from h6 for a move. I can simply play rook to e8 check. And after knight to e2, now I have to make my decision, and I ended up playing the move h6, simply because I thought h5 is a little bit more of a theoretical line. It's completely playable, but it's a little bit more of a theoretical line, and I didn't really know much theory there, so I didn't want to be out prepped in my own opening, since my opponent wasn't thinking at this point, and I simply just didn't want to get into any of that. So I played h6, which is a little bit more passive, but it's completely fine, and it is a completely normal line. My opponent castles, I think, for a little bit, but I played the best move. I played knight d7. The idea is that he doesn't really know where my knight's going to go. This is where the knight wants to be anyway. I could go to f8, I could go to b6, try to get up here. Maybe I play c5 with the knight defending it. You know, there's lots of decisions here. Maybe I even sack the pawn and put the knight on f6. I don't even know. But the point is, the knight has a lot of ideas here, and my opponent has to think about a move, and that he did. He thought for a decent amount of time, and he played a very aggressive move. My opponent ended up playing this very interesting move, knight to f4. And the point of knight to f4, the entire point of knight to f4 is that he wants to attack me. He simply wants to attack me. He wants to get the knight here, and he wants to take on this square in some lines, and then he might have some fork on these two pieces if I were to move my queen and my knight away, which is kind of what I want to do here. My whole point in this position is that I want to eventually put the knight on f8 and maybe reroute it up this way. This is my main idea here. He doesn't know that, but this is my main idea. I want to put the knight on f8, I'll put the queen on c7, I want to target this area, and I want to keep my bishop exposed. But if I do that, then there's this idea of bishop takes h6 at the end of it, where after I take, my opponent will be taking here, attacking both my king and my rook, and I don't want to do that because my king wouldn't be able to defend my rook since the knight would be on f8 in that line. A little bit complicated, but let's just show you what I'm talking about. If I go knight f8, let's say my opponent goes knight here, and if I go queen to c7, now the move bishop takes h6 is on the board. After here, he has this check here, and he takes this, attacking these pieces. My king cannot go over to defend the rook since the knight is in the way, right? Pretty simple stuff, but of course I didn't want to get into all that, so I had to be a little bit more good at chess here, and I played the move that I thought was the best one. I played the move knight to f8, which is correct. The idea is that I'm defending these squares, so never mate, right? Knight f8, never mate. And in the future, I'm trying to get my light squared bishop out. I'm trying to maybe get my knight up to e6 in some lines, And my queen is defending the f6 pawn, so I'm not worried about any of these bishop takes h6. And if my opponent plays knight h4 immediately, I'm going to play knight h5 immediately. I'm probably going to play, I thought I was going to play this move, bishop g4. This is my plan, bishop g4, because I'm like, okay, well now my bishop's getting out. I thought maybe even at the end of the day I could take this, and after hg I might be able to go like bishop h5 and try to trade off my light squared bishop while getting my knight out to g6. I thought that was like maybe an interesting idea, but I might have found something better here. Computer just says g6 and I'm better, which is logical, I guess, because after like knight g3 I can go king g7, defend this pawn, and life is good. But either way, bishop d2 is the move he chose, and here is my first big think of the game. This is the first time I actually had to like really consider my moves. The last couple things were maybe like 1 or 2 minute things. Now I have to actually like really consider what I'm doing, because bishop d2, his main idea, he's just gonna put a rook on the file. His play is really easy, and my pieces are a little bit tangled up here. I really want to get this bishop out of the way. If I go bishop to d7, then it feels like I'm not going to be able to connect my rooks anymore, because like whenever I move my queen out, knight h4 becomes a huge issue, and I don't want to deal with that. I was thinking about a lot of things here. I was thinking about bishop d7, just copying him here. I was thinking about bishop to e6, but I wasn't sure why I was giving up the bishop pair like that. I didn't think that that was entirely accurate. I'm sure it's a fine move. I'm sure bishop e6, what was the analysis of this? Oh, it's actually really bad. Okay, yeah, I'm glad I didn't play that. Of course, I still didn't think I could really play queen to c7. I thought that queen to c7, knight h5, and this is actually not good for me, because I was just like, oh, what am I doing? I feel like I'm just not in control here. And now if I play bishop to g4, I thought that at the end of the day, he like might have some like sneaky trick like g3 in some lines. And like this, I don't know. Maybe he gets the h-file. I didn't want to get into this. Anyway, I didn't play queen to c7. I thought of a very interesting move, and I'm actually very proud of this move. I spent like 10 minutes and I found a pretty nice continuation. I played the move bishop to g4, and this is a very good move. I think this is a very good move. First of all, it simply stops the move knight h4. Simply stops knight to knight h4, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. Second of all, now I'm one step closer to connecting my rooks, so queen to c7 is next, since knight h4 is no longer a problem. And third of all, I calculated that if my opponent plays something like h3, what I'm going to play here, I'm going to play the move... Sorry, my dog is barking, but I was going to play... This is what I calculated. I was going to play bishop takes f4, takes bishop h5, and I was going to get this, and I thought, okay, at the end of the day, I'm going to be trading off my opponent's bishop. Life is good. And I thought that if anyone's like doing decent here, it might be black, but my opponent does have a strong bishop on this diagonal. And there is a small difference. My opponent plays f3. I can't really take this. I mean, I can technically, but it's a little bit different, because after takes, my opponent is able to open up their rook. Like for example, takes, my opponent can take here, I thought, and that might be an issue. And after takes, I wasn't sure about this position, just because he's able to get his rook open, and he might have some like decent play. But of course, queen d7 targeting the pawn. I don't know. Maybe I'm better here. Something like this, right? And life is actually good. I'm gonna put the knight on e6 next. Yeah, so I thought that this was a pretty interesting move to try and trade off one of his bishops if he was going to be aggressive with me, and if he wasn't going to be aggressive with me, it simply stops the move. Simply stops this move. So I was like, okay, that seems like a good idea. He again doesn't think very long. I'm sure that this move like kind of shocked him, but he doesn't really consider too much problems. He simply plays the move rook f to e1, which makes sense, putting the rook on the file. I don't see anything wrong with that move. Now I play queen to c7 pretty quickly, simply targeting the knight now. Now this move f3 doesn't make any sense because of, well, I can sack this bishop, desperado sacrifice, but I would have probably just done this and then done this and be better. Either way, my opponent doesn't do that. My opponent goes g3, and I start to realize here that maybe I'm getting a little bit of what I want in the position, because g3 on the surface, you see that my opponent has weakened his light squares on his king, right? That's like pure what g3 does. He's weakened his light squares on his king. and I was very, very interested in like how it's played out. For example, top engine line here is very, very tricky, but it makes a lot of sense. Simply this move, bishop takes f4, bishop takes f4, giving up the bishop pair, but queen d7, and you're getting onto these light squares. You're getting onto these nice light squares here, and you're also stopping the move bishop to f5. And this would be a very, very good move if I saw it, but I mean, I considered this, but I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was just stupid giving up the bishop pair like that, so I didn't do that. And instead I went for something a little bit more like interesting. There's a lot of things to calculate here. I was thinking about queen d7. I was thinking about this move g5 at some point. I was like really interested in moves like this, just being super, super aggressive. Then maybe I can like sack my bishop somewhere. There's some very, very interesting play there. Knight e6 is another move I thought about. I didn't think knight e6 was that good. Don't remember why. Why did I think knight e6 wasn't that good? I have no idea. I have no idea why I took away 96. Let's put it on. Maybe I just didn't like this. Okay, but then I would have just. Oh right. I didn't like taking like this and then like something like bishop g6 or something. I don't know. And like targeting my rook. I don't know. Maybe it's better to take with the bishop. I mean, I'm fine here, but I don't know. I'm not sure why I didn't like knight c6, 96, but I think I found a better move overall, and the engine likes the move I played, so who really cares? Bishop takes f4 is the best move. I went for a different line as I went for an attack. I played the move h5. And this is a very, very aggressive move. This is a very, very aggressive move because my simple idea is that I'm going to play this. That's literally what I'm going to play. I'm simply going to play h4. I'm going to ruin his structure. I'm going to open up his king, and then I'm going to checkmate him. That's what's going to happen here. And my opponent doesn't really have the methods of like stopping this because like I thought, okay, if h3, I just go bishop to f3. This is still on the way. And I wasn't like worried like at all. I thought it was better. I thought it was like significantly better, like at least like minus 0.4 when I played h5. I'm wrong, it's zeros, but it's very, very tricky here. And my opponent plays a move that actually kind of shocks me. There's a lot of very interesting lines here. For example, I might be threatening the move g5. That's like a real move. That's a threat because after knight to g2, I would play the move h5. And I would like start to like rip open his position with my bishops, and it doesn't matter that I'm pushing pawns in front of my king, as I am like destroying him. Like he's dead. He's dead to rights here, which would be fun. But after the move h5, he plays a very, very nice line. It's a very, very nice line. My opponent plays this cool move. This cool move that I looked at, but I didn't realize how strong it was over the board. My opponent plays this move knight to g2. Which is just an incredible move. Well, not incredible. It's pretty necessary, I think, because well, you stop at this move. First of all, you stop h5, and your knight might be coming out to here. I might be losing my light squared bishop, which I really like. I really like my light squared bishop, and I thought that in the future, my opponent is like threatening to like get something going here, like knight up into this square. And there's not much that I can really do here. For example, my first idea was to play g5 like automatically. This is already bad due to knight e3, bishop f3, and my opponent like just gets the f5 square. And like this is just horrendous, right? He's going after my bishop. My king is kind of like walled in due to this bishop and this knight. And I'm just like, I'm not having fun. I'm not having fun in this position. So I realized that that's not what I wanted to do. And the other line that I was calculating, I calculated a ton of stuff. I played a pretty decent move overall, but there was a ton of stuff that I was calculating. I was calculating queen d7, trying to get onto like the light squares here. But the issue with that move is that first of all, knight e6 defends this, but I was looking at rook sacrifices and maybe getting in anyway. But the issue there is that if I ever put my bishop on f3, he's going to play the move bishop to f5, get my queen out of the way, and then I mean, like there's just nothing that I can really do there. So I was just totally unsure of the position after queen d7. I was thinking about this move g6, which is the top engine move, but the reason why I didn't like this was this move bishop to h6, and I really didn't like this move because he's simply going after my knight. And at the end of the day, my opponent is gonna have this move knight h4, and he's gonna like put pressure on this with these 3 pieces, and it looked really, really dangerous after he's gonna trade my knight here. And it looked really, really dangerous. I thought that I might be losing since my rook and my king are on the sim diagonal, and if the queen gets to this square, you can attack both, and maybe my opponent can get something good there. So I was really, really worried about this idea of bishop g6 there. I'm sorry, bishop h6 there if I play the move g6. So I didn't want to do that. Also, the point of g6, by the way, is that I want to play king g7, and I want to stop his opponent's knight from getting to the f5 square. That's the main point. But either way, I ended up just kind of leaving it alone and not touching like that whole side of the board. And I just went off on like an entirely different move because I didn't think that my opponent's like had a threat. I didn't think my opponent had a threat. I thought if I just sit still and relaxed, I would be okay. So I played the move c5, which is an okay move. Because, well, it doesn't really touch this side of the board. And now I'm kind of targeting my opponent over here. And what I really want to do, I kind of want to open up the d file and make sure that I get a rook on it. And I mean, you see these 2 bishops here, maybe I can like get some interesting play. I don't know. It makes a very, very interesting amount of sense here. And yeah, I thought that I was actually doing decently okay, but I was sure that it was probably like equal at this point. I knew that I kind of messed up my lines here. This move is not good, by the way. c4 is a very, very good and timely move. After something like bishop to f5, I can go with I can actually just play knight d7, which is a little insane. But like, let's say I didn't see that. Like I thought I could just like play bishop f3 and like I'm fine, right? Like this is like okay. Also, not to mention this pawn is always a weakness after c4. Instead, my opponent takes. I recapture the bishop, trying to get my bishop onto this diagonal, onto his king, which kind of makes sense. I kind of want to do that. I wasn't really too scared of b4 because then I just go bishop d6, and like now these pawns are weak. Now I get the rook here, and like you see, like there's like immediate pressure. I'm threatening like bishop sacks in some lines. I mean, I thought the pawns were just weak if he did that, so he didn't do that. He instead played bishop to e3, which made a lot of sense. And here I kind of went crazy. If I just like took a second and realized what was going on here, I would have been fine. Like if I just like develop my knight first, like knight d7 is a really good move here. Knight e6 is probably also a really good move here. And like my opponent's gonna take. I'm gonna get my knight up, and that would be like really good for me. Not to mention I can also play like a random move like g6 here. Bishop to h6, I mean, you're moving the bishop twice, right? That can't be too good for you. And actually, like black is significantly better after bishop f3, and this is like far from being like a decisive advantage to white, or like any advantage to white. So I was like, yeah, but you know what? I see like a different plan. I decided to take the bishop, which is really stupid. The point of it, the reason why I did this, the reason why I took the bishop is that after my opponent takes back with a knight, I thought I was just gonna play like my bishop back to like d7 or something, or bishop f3, and right, like he can't go here. I thought his knight was a little bit misplaced since like the f5 square doesn't make any sense now. Now I just played g6 and I'm not worried because knight h6 I just go king g7, and actually like black is significantly better. But yeah, this was just not good. Like, yeah, if he took back with the knight, maybe that would be good for me. But he ends up taking with the rook, which is a really nice move, something that I kind of missed here. And he's simply saying, okay, well, if you don't take me, I'm going to double up. Sorry. Oh, no, I had to sneeze there. I'm sorry. Yeah, but rook takes e3. The idea is that he's going to double up on this file, and he's going to just take control of everything, and then I'm going to be like struggling to survive. So I didn't really see a good move here. I thought if I play like rook a8, my opponent can just bring the other rook. I probably have to take it. My opponent's going to take back with the knight. I'm going to play like, I don't know, bishop e6 or something. And like I have some pressure here, I have some pressure on this pawn, but in reality, I don't like that my opponent has the e-file. I like that I have the D file, but I don't think it's as good as the E file. In all honesty, if I'm like being like totally objective here, I think this position is slightly better for white, even though of course the engine always says zeros. But I think it was slightly better for white if I did that. So I ended up taking the rook. By the way, really cool line. I can play the move knight d7 here. The idea is simply to get my knight up to this square. I wasn't like aware. I wasn't aware of this. I wasn't really thinking about this at all. Like f4 is a bad move, by the way. You need to stop this because like I can go knight c5. I thought maybe I could even like, I don't know, even I can like take and play like queen c5 or something, right? And like I put pressure with this pin and like, I don't know, maybe this is good for me. Maybe. But whatever. I ended up taking it. And after the move knight, it takes e3. This is kind of where I play another bad move. I don't really find a good square for my bishop. If I put the bishop on e6, I thought I'm blocking my knight from developing. If I put the bishop on d7, I thought that, well, the bishop doesn't really belong to d7. What is it doing there? And I couldn't find a good move. Actually, what I'm supposed to do is not do anything with the bishop, just play knight d7, which I totally didn't see, because I just thought if I didn't do anything with the bishop, my opponent would go here and here. But here, of course, I have knight e5. This I missed, but this would be very, very nice if I saw it. Of course, like queen e4, this doesn't work because of g6 here. And the move f5, my knight is always defended, so that would be good for me. Like this also doesn't really do anything because of like rook e8 or something, and I get like some play against the queen for the pawn. It's not really that clear, but anyway, I put my bishop on f3, which is not a good move. Again, I should have really considered knight d7 there. I should have like tried to figure out, okay, well, what can I do that actually like defends the pawn if my opponent gets a bishop there. I should have gone knight d7, but it doesn't matter. My opponent goes bishop to e4. I have to take, and here in this position, I realized that my position sucks. I spent 25 minutes here, 25 minutes, and I could not find a move for black. My first instinct was knight e6. What I was worried about, knight d5. Okay, well, that's not the end of the world, right? Okay, at least you don't go queen c6 and blender a fork. What do? You play like, I don't know, queen d7. From bad to worse, my opponent just goes rook d1. Now he's threatening the move knight takes f6 check with a discovered attack here. So I have to do something else. I have to move my queen again. If I go king to h8, there's already issues with like queen to h4, and I'm like losing, right? So like you see how like it goes from like bad to worse. And if I don't do that, if I like put a rook on the file, I thought my opponent like still had knight d5. I thought my opponent like had some like pretty interesting stuff here, and I was so worried about this position. The reason why I need to develop my knight, by the way, is that I kind of wanted to be able to walk my king out this way in some lines. One thing I was really considering was this move knight to g6 as well to stop any knight here. So after knight d5, I can go queen to c6. But I was also like worried about this position, like here. Okay, by the way, yes, I see the tactic. It doesn't really work, this move. Oh, okay, if I take, then this is a bad endgame for me. Oh no, this is a bad endgame for me. I did actually think this was a bad endgame for me. I guess it's not, whatever. But I mean, like, double splitting the pawns is probably bad. This doesn't work because after takes, I can just take the knight, and I'm defending this pawn, and the queen is hanging. So that would be good for me. Either way, there was just so many lines here that I just could not figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. I spent 20 minutes and I couldn't figure it out. I was trying to play like this move, queen to e5, but of course that loses the b7 pawn, so maybe rook to b8 ahead of time. But then like again, knight to d5 comes in, and like this threat is just looming, and it's just so scary. It's so scary, and I have like no idea what I'm supposed to do. So I ended up thinking, okay, well, one of my opponent's big ideas is the knight d5, and then like targeting this with a check. I'm gonna play king h8. I'm just gonna move my king out of the way. It's not gonna be the end of the world, but this is a like a losing mistake. I play king h8. 1.2 in the eval bar. Honestly, I might have been able to get away with it, but this is just not a good move. My opponent can like immediately target me, do like some terrible things to me. Like the move queen to f3 is really nice, hitting my h4 pawn. If I go here, you just win the b7 pawn. There's no real way to defend this. If I go g6, obviously queen f6, and yeah, this is just not a good position. Not a good position. I shouldn't have done that. I kind of realized my mistake immediately as I played it, and probably should have thought a bit harder. Probably should have like played like, I don't know, what's the top engine line here? Rook d8, whatever. It just there's so many like complications here that I could not figure it out. And well, when that happens, you make mistakes. Either way, king h8. My opponent goes rook d1 here. He misses queen f3, but rook d1 is still a very good move, taking control of the advantage. And I just thought, okay, well, king h8 was a waste of time. I spent so much time on that move. I can't really spend that much time again. I'm simply going to like, I don't know, develop my knight. I'm gonna play 96. Play 96. 96. Well, I gotta do it. This is the move I wanted to play earlier. I'm gonna play 96. I'm not gonna think too hard. 96 on the board. Not a good move. Not a good move. Because now my opponent immediately has his move queen to h4, and I mean, I'm just losing a pawn. I'm simply losing a pawn. Nothing I can do. g6, I lose this one. That one is arguably worse. Queen here, trying to defend the pawn. I just lose everything with a rook to d5. Actually, I have to sack my queen here. If I don't, I get mated, which is not good. Don't want that to happen. So I'm just gonna be down a pawn, and in this moment I go into like panic mode. I realize, oh no, I bungled this. I'm playing a 15-50. I can't be losing to a 15-50. What am I doing? By the way, he's playing an excellent game, like really like strong game here. I don't know how he's like this good as a 15-50, but whatever. And I try to think of like the best way to like keep complications on the board. So I play the move knight to g5, simply saying, okay, you can have my pawn, but I want targets like at your king, and I'm going to bring my rook in the center, and there might be some issues. There might be some problems. You might have to like take some time and think about it, and hopefully when you think, you will make mistakes, and I will be able to survive. I will be able to survive, or even win the game. I don't even know. My opponent takes on h5. I'm like super locked in. Of course, king g8 is forced. Knight to d5. And I think for a little bit, but I'm not like trying to think too long because, of course, I'm a little bit down on time at this point, like 15 minutes down on time since I spent so long playing king h8, right? So I'm playing pretty fast, and I'm simply playing off intuition of what can be the most complicated lines, and I play the move queen to c5. Simply saying, okay, well now these are kind of in the way. Now I have this idea, trying to go after this pawn in some lines. I'm going to bring my rook to e8, and there's a lot of play here. Of course, queen d6 is another move. But I didn't like this idea because now I have only one pin and I'm not targeting this, right? So I play queen to c5. Thanks for a little bit. He plays king to g2, which makes sense, hopping off of the pin at like any level. And I barely think, I simply put my rook onto e8 because of course if I put my rook onto d8, well then I would lose, right? Knight f6 and I lose the rook. But rook to e8. It's the best move. I'm trying to get into the position, and my opponent here goes for the kill with the move rook to d4. And I realize that in this position, he's basically simply saying, okay, well, I'm gonna mate you. I'm gonna mate you now. There's nothing you can do. Play this move, and I'm gonna mate you, and I'm gonna mate you, right? That move, and you're gonna mate me. That's not good. That's a little bit scary. And I don't really appreciate that. I also don't appreciate how long it took me to come to the conclusion that he wanted to mate me. It took me a while to figure that out, actually. Very, very stupid like time consideration. And there's not many moves that I have here. Computer's like giving all these stupid moves, like b5 is one that the computer is giving, like ignoring this, I guess. Oh right, because this is a check, and I would win the game. Wait, why was I so worried? Sorry, give me a second. Did I see a ghost or something? I was worried that he was like trying to come over here, but I guess that like the knight is just hanging. Was I just like worried for nothing? Maybe I was worried because one of my moves was like knight e6, this idea, and then rook h4, and this was how I like figured out that he had this idea. Maybe. I have no idea. I have no idea what I was thinking. Oh man, a little bit stupid. Whatever. Either way, I thought that was a big threat. I guess it's not. I don't know how I missed that, but whatever. And I decided to play something that I thought had the best chance, even though I knew that it was losing. Even though I knew that I was probably losing. I saw this line in this position that I was going to play the move rook to e4. Of course, if my opponent takes this, I would take the knight. This pin is very, very strong. After f3, I have check. Doesn't really matter where the king moves. I'm going to take the rook. You're going to take. I'm going to go another check here, take the pawn with check, and then I'm going to win these pawns, and I'm probably winning the game, right? A little bit of interesting like play there, right? And after rook e4, my opponent has a very simple win condition. My opponent's going to play knight to f6 check. I have to take it. If I don't, if I move my king, fork of the king and the queen, right? So knight after rook e4, knight to f6 check takes rook here. If I sack my queen on f8, I'm simply losing. So king to g8, rook to h8, unstoppable checkmate with queen to h6. I'm going to have to play the move rook to h4. My opponent cannot take with the queen because of queen d5, and this is a simple, easy perpetual check. So he has to take with the pawn. And in that position, I might have a perpetual check with queen d5. I really don't know. I was very, very unsure of that position. But maybe, and I thought it was my best chance to go for a draw because he has many chances to lose the game. Oh, my dog is barking. Okay, I think she's done. I play rook to e4. And as you can see from the info bar, my opponent does not have a simple, easy win here. Okay, I'm gonna wait until my dog stops barking. All right, she finally stopped. Took a decent bit of time, but either way, I go for this line, and as you can see, this isn't losing on the spot, which is incredible. Knight f6 doesn't work. It's not forced mate. It's not a forced mate there, but it's still losing. My opponent can do basically whatever here, and he's fine. He can play like queen d1. Like this is how you do it. Like basically any move is like fine as long as you don't like lose the game, right? So you play like, I don't know, rook d3. You just defend everything, and there's nothing here. I'm just lost. Okay, yeah. But my opponent here spent like 10 minutes. Oh, by the way, yes, this is correct. This is completely losing. Queen d5, f3. This line is just game over, right? Check here, check. Every pawn is lost. You have an IQP. You don't have any checks on my king. This is just game over, right? I would be completely winning there. Yeah, that didn't happen. He's not gonna do that. Instead, my opponent goes for knight f6 and takes the pawn. And in this position, I do have a perpetual check. What I calculated was correct. And when I said I might have a perpetual check, I do. I just do. I have one. Takes. Rook d8. King g7. Rook to h8. And after the very, very good move, the only move in the position, rook to h4. In this position, I decide to psych out my opponent since I don't have that much of hope. I'm very, very worried. By the way, I'm very, very worried about my position. I thought that I was still losing because I saw like a world where after takes queen d5, my opponent could like run the king over, bring the queen back after we trade queens. My opponent, I would take the rook, he would take my knight, and then at the end of the day, he would simply be up a pawn in that resulting endgame. And I was a little bit worried about that, but actually that doesn't work. And after I offered this draw here, trying to psych out my opponent, I did it like with a big grin on my face, like acting, huge bluff. I was trying to like tell him, okay, well I know it's a draw now, but yeah, he takes with the h pawn, with the g pawn. Sorry, of course, if he takes with the queen, this is a very easy. This is a very, very easy draw. He simply perpetuals. Yeah, he has nothing he can do. if he ever goes to this square, right? Boop, boop. So he has to take with the G pawn, and after I move queen d5, my opponent agrees to a draw, which is a little bit insane, but it's true. It's a draw. It's a draw here. My opponent, okay, let's go through all the lines. My opponent plays f3, queen d2. It doesn't matter. This is a very easy perpetual. If he ever comes up, I can play queen e1. I can play queen e5 if he comes here, right? King g4, f5 check is the way you do it. Takes, and f6 is mate, right? I saw that at least, and I saw, of course, that if he doesn't do that, if he goes king to g3, this is another like pretty easy one. Queen e5. If he ever goes f4, I'm simply gonna play like queen e3 or something, and life is good. Life is good. There is just pretty simple stuff. Like he has nothing he can do. Like this is just a draw. Queen e4, right? If he ever blocks with the queen, can't. Knight is defending. So life is good there. And the other line, the line that I was worried about, where my opponent tries to run his king over here, actually loses the game, which I totally didn't see. I thought I was going to play queen h1. This is still a draw. Queen h1, queen e4, and then maybe I would like have something. But here I would have to find queen b1, which I didn't see. I didn't see this. I wasn't sure. Maybe I would find this during the game, but I was going to play like queen d3 and lose the game, right? And like this is very, very complicated. But actually, I'm completely winning here if I only find the move queen d3 check. And the point is, if my opponent goes here, knight f3 check is literally mate. My opponent has to take, and I'm up a queen, right? That'd be good for me. And if my opponent goes this way, I go knight h3 check. My opponent goes king g2. I go knight f4. Boom. Fork. Of course, if he goes here, checkmate. Which is very, very nice. I didn't see that at all. But yeah, that's incredible. But here he just agreed to my draw, and life is good for me. Life is good for me. Either way, that's all I've got for you today. This was a very, very good game. I played at 91% accuracy. My opponent played at 90.5% accuracy. A little disappointed to draw a 1500, but like, well, I gotta do something, right? It's better than a loss. So yeah, nothing in the world. Either way, that's all I've got for you today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys found this entertaining, instructive, all of the above. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, don't let those YouTubers tell you to. And yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.